Welcome to the first ever episode of the Gen Z Blueprint. I'm your host, Sujan Penduthi, and I'm joined by my co-host, Rahul Patel. And today we're talking about how and why the education system is failing us. So let's talk about it for a second here, or I guess for an hour here. Like, is the education system failing us, and why is it failing us, and what are your thoughts on that?
So let's just start off with, was it always failing us? Was it doomed to fail, or is it failing us now because of how the world's changing, or because of uh, how it is right now, because of the world, because are people changing what they want?
So, I mean, if we were thinking about it, if we, at least from an American standpoint, if we go back in time from America. So from an American standpoint, if we go back in time to when the public school system was first be like starting and becoming popular, we're looking back towards the end of the Industrial Revolution with a lot of reformers when Upton Sinclair was writing about the jungle and that era. So in that era, we're seeing, um, you know, urbanization, we're seeing industrialization, and we're seeing, more people, more kids, especially working jobs in the city. And this is, coal, this is, steel, this is that type of stuff. So it's not the easiest amount of work, it's hard work, and it's grueling, and they're getting paid not very much. So when these kids were, when school became mandatory by laws and stuff, all of a sudden we're seeing, you know, families are becoming more important, right? We're seeing kids are not going to school, which means that there's less of a workforce. There's less people out in the workforce, which means that companies now have to pay people more as there's less workers. There's less supply demand. So therefore the price of the workers, the wage of these workers has to go up. And as a result, now these adults, their kids essentially have a daycare. They can work when their kids are at school. They're getting paid a little bit more because now that there's less kids working, now adults can work more. So, and there's a lot of other stuff going on at the time, which is, helped, they build the 8-hour workday, livable wages, stuff like that. And, it really helps the parents because now, the kids are at school. So at the time, it was meant to simply be, as from American standpoint, it was meant to be a daycare and to help the working class truly be a working family, not just a working class, but being a family where the mother and father might work but the kids won't, or where the father might work and the mother might be stay at home. But that's from an American standpoint in the 1800s. If we go farther back in time to Joseph II and Catherine the Great, it's a different story.
So is that how ancient practices could be the key to modern education?
So not exactly, but in ancient times, we're seeing a completely different. With Socrates, Aristotle, and Plato, we're seeing a classroom where people are talking, people are discussing, where notes are no longer mandatory. We're seeing, it might be in the middle of the day. It's the circadian rhythm might be, more optimal at that time, and students are involved, they're learning. It's called the Socratic seminar, in at least like nowadays in our schools. But back then, that's how it was. It was Socrates who was just up there speaking, and he would involve other students. And when you're more involved, your brain will have more activity, and you'll make more connections, right? And there's certain parts of your brain that are actually more active during Socratic seminars and during speech, and when you're more involved in class and experimental education rather than a more modern lecture education style. Yeah,
So this is, I hate to be a conspiracist when I say this, but would you say
a
the
conspiracist, huh? Uh, how do you actually say it?
cons
Conspiracy theorist?
conspiracy
Conspiracy theorist.
conspiracy
Conspiracy theorist.
conspiracy theory? Yeah. So I hate to be one of them when I say this, but
One of who?
one of the conspiracy theorists or whatever,
Okay.
is the school system brainwashing us? Is it ruining?
Yes, it is brainwashing us, but I don't think it's in the way that people think it is. I think that it's brainwashing us in the sense that it's indoctrinating a certain way of thought, a certain you know if X then Y, if Y then Z. It's a very logical, very rational thought process, which it's a certain thought process that we're made to conform to, and it's also form of propaganda. There's a reason we pledge allegiance every day. There's you know, and there's stuff like that that makes us think in a certain way. There's certain way we think of certain things that teach us, right? They'll, in certain states they won't teach like Civil War about slavery. They'll teach about states' rights, right? So it's stuff like that. And I think is the Civil War about states' rights? Yeah, but the states' rights are about slavery. So I think school might be brainwashing us in a certain way, but it might be serving a purpose for our government, but at the end of the day, that government might be like serving the people, and it might also um, be for the better of the people. Yeah,
Yeah, I think I can see that. I can see why how schools are teaching different, like I'm sure different nations teach different wars differently based on their
mm,
side. Not even just based on their side, based on the outcome and stuff
yeah. I'm
like,
sure like Vietnam probably teaches
yeah,
it differently than we
World War
do, right?
II in Germany is taught differently.
Yep.
Even probably a war like the Revolutionary War in the UK isn't as taught as
Yeah.
popular. I mean, everyone here learns about it. So when you say the school system's brainwashing us, talk about like, is the classroom ancient? Does it still work?
The classroom, I wouldn't say it's ancient, but it is old, 200 years old, right? In the time of, the Industrial Revolution, like we said before, is that was when the classroom was the exact same if you look
Mm.
at it now. The rows of desks, teacher at the front of the board lecturing on a chalkboard. Nowadays we have dry erase markers and projectors and stuff, but it's the same concept, and it's teaching, frankly, an old system to a completely different world that's ever evolving, and that's been the transfer of ideas is so much quicker now than it's ever been due to stuff like internet and all that stuff.
So you mentioned like teachers teaching at the front of the board. Is it because of new social media, the way our brains work, that we don't stay engaged as long that a 50-minute lecture doesn't work, or has it never worked?
So the thing with exactly a 15-minute lecture is that if we read stuff
And
like the
sorry to
4 hour,
interrupt, but some 50 minutes is the usual, but some are even longer. Some go hours,
some are
block
longer.
schedules, 2 hours.
I have friends who are doing 70, 80
Yeah,
minutes,
so
but and college lectures are way longer than us in
exactly.
high school or middle school. But in specifically, is social media causing us to do worse in
Common term
school?
brain rot, as they say now.
Yeah, is brain rot making us worse in
Exactly.
school? I don't know. I definitely think that it's impairing certain people to do certain things in school. But at that same point, a 90-minute lecture is or 50-minute lecture is very bad. If you've ever read the 4 Hour Work Week,
Mm.
right? 4 Hour Work Week is a book about deep work and stuff like that. Or Cal Newport's books on deep work. It's like 90-minute periods are is what op- is what opt it's optimal. I think it's three sessions of 90 minutes of deep work per day. That's if you've been working at deep work. If that's if you're optimized and all that stuff. The average person probably won't be able to do 90 minutes of deep work. So if we are to be in a classroom for 50 minutes, etc., like 50 minutes of just nonstop, just some guy talking to me, the brain literally works worse. The electrical activity slows over time. It's not as active as it is in the beginning. Let's say the 20-minute mark, I might have 10 points of electrical activity, but at the 15-minute mark, I'll have one, two, if that. I'll zone out. I won't even be thinking about that. Um, a lot of probability as well. It's like you have a higher probability of people listening in the beginning than at the end, right? So you have stuff like law of probability. You have attention spans decreasing over time. You have the fact that it's just not optimal in general from an actual biological evolutionary standpoint. Uh, and yeah, that 15-minute lecture, I think is not optimal, not a good
We
idea.
say this while making an hour-long
An hour long
podcast, but
podcast,
that you
yeah.
should still listen to all the way. We promise we'll try
You might have to
keep
break
it
it up a little
interesting.
bit
But
for
yeah, that is a very good point because in school you often, how can you expect a student to stay engaged in 7 hours, seven different classes
at 7
at
a.m.
7 a.m., waking up early?
There's there's
There's
no way
no,
we
then
can
going home, sending them to do 2, 3 hours
do homework.
homework, trying to get them to do other clubs.
And let's say they do get clubs, extracurriculars. Like if I'm interested in like cross country or track, like if I have to sit through 9 hours of school with people I dislike, and and have to go to practice at the end of the day, I'm already
And then you
tired,
got
bro. It's
homework
like,
after that from your classes.
yeah.
I'm sure your parents want to see you a little bit.
Yeah, and like you won't have any connection with your
Yeah,
parents, and I think like I don't know about like how it is in Europe, but at least in America, like a lot of teenagers, like probably we can probably say it's like hey, I have a less relationship with my parents than I did when I was
definitely.
younger, right? And I mean like it might not be all bad, it might not be all good, but I don't know how it is. Again, I don't know how it is in Europe, but I'm pretty sure in Europe it's nowhere close to as bad. I'm pretty sure they still talk about their
I mean,
parents.
our desks are in our room, right? That's where we work.
Yeah,
We do our homework in there. I mean, I see them, I say goodnight, and then it's often the next day. And
yeah.
now that we are at the age where we drive to school, it's almost like I'm never seeing them. Not really the fact that
But there's we are driving to school, dude. It's like that's completely different in Europe and like even not even in Europe. I have my neighbor here. He grew up in Queens or the Bronx
mm,
something like that. He used to take public transport. Like he would take like the metro and stuff so like to school, right? And it's like that's completely different from how we
yeah.
do it, right? It's like a lot of people would do that whether it be Japan or New York or stuff like that, Chicago. It's completely different. Like if we're suburban, we'll drive and stuff, but he's in an urban environment. He's in New York, so he took public transport. He would talk to people, whether it be from his school or just random people on the public transport. Okay.
So we've talked about students, and we both kind of agree. Overworked teachers. Are they overworked, and also are they underpaid?
So I mean, I think if we're looking at it from an international perspective, it obviously differs, right? I think in if you look at places like Japan, I think like everyone there's overworked. That's how the corporate culture is. That's how the workforce is in Japan. Now, they are paid far better than here. Obviously not from a
Yeah,
one-to-one ratio, but if you adjust for cost of living, currencies, and all that, they are paid way better than here. And even in America, there's a
yeah,
vast differences, which makes sense, right? A teacher who's being paid 100 grand in New York City is like, okay, like you're able to live, but a guy who's being paid like 40 grand in Kansas, in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, they're essentially making the same thing, right? And I think I think teachers definitely are underpaid, but I think we also have to
mm,
look at it from, a standpoint of how a business or how a government would look at it, right? If there's less teachers, if there's, I mean, there are shortages now, right?
right,
And the shortages, which were spread by COVID pandemic and other stuff, is, now the
right.
education system is facing a teacher shortage. And it should that means wages should go up, and that means more people will come. That's how it works. Supply and demand, equilibrium, that's how it works. But, when the wages aren't increasing
Basic,
when there's teacher shortage,
yep.
that's when
Bas
I think it's a problem. I think it's a big problem if if the wages aren't increasing, if salaries aren't increasing for teachers when we need more teachers. We need to attract more teachers. Um, but are they overworked? I think again that's case by case basis. I've seen teachers who literally have worked 4 hour workdays. 4 hours, dude. It's like 4 hours and you're getting paid 60 grand, 50 grand, something around there. I think in that scenario it's okay. But I've also seen teachers who were there from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m.
right.
So
Because not just teaching, it's prepping the lectures.
it's prepping, it's student hours, it's all that stuff.
Oftentimes teachers are asked to do other things
Right.
at the school too.
And
Because it's not just teaching,
administrative,
it's
the
prepping the
department,
lectures. It's
there's a lot of work that goes into it. And
oftentimes teachers are asked to do other
look
things
at
at
it,
the
like
school too.
7 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's an
Exactly.
11-hour workday.
It's longer than most jobs.
And this guy's getting paid like what, 60K max? At least
It's
where
longer
we
than
live,
most
right?
jobs.
If but that's how it
60,
is at least
if
in
they're lucky,
where we live in
where we live,
America.
right.
But
It'll differ from where
I
you guys are
again I
watching
think a lot
from.
of teachers are also creating work for themselves.
Yeah.
A lot of work will be created by teacher, but it's also
Yeah.
I don't think that's it's the teacher's fault. Right? I think in the vast scenarios, I think it's the school, the students, and the teacher. I think it's a combination of all of them. But I definitely think that teachers are overworked for the amount they're getting paid. I think if they got paid more, I don't think they're overworked, right? But you're getting paid more now.
Right.
I don't think you can complain about like stuff like that. Um, but I think another thing that teachers have a
Right.
problem with
Right.
is that they're forced to teach things in a way they don't like it, right? It's like, whether that be, standardized tests, AP tests, uh, college at the end of the day. It's
Our
like,
teachers teaching to learn, our teachers teaching to test. Some of the standardized tests that America is AP exams, SATs. Our teachers teaching to learn are teaching to attest. Some of the standardized testing we have here in America is AP exams, SAT, ACT.
yeah.
So oftentimes we've heard from our
So I mean,
teachers that they'd
that's
love to teach
definitely
us other
true.
sort of
And
content,
I definitely
or they
think
want to
that,
answer certain
well, for
questions,
those
but they
things who
just don't
don't
have the
know, that
time
the
in a
No
year
Child
to
Left
go into certain
Behind
things.
is the policy that created a lot of these standardized testing. That's where you'll have a lot of the state tests, whether that be, Ames, AC Merit, most states, 90% of states will have a form of standardized testing that isn't the ACT, SAT, and AP scores. But yeah, I think the No Child Left Behind policy at the time was hailed as a fantastic thing,
Right, right,
but nowadays it's seen as like the worst. Every teacher hates it because they're forced to teach you a certain curriculum that's
right, right,
not it's not relevant anymore, and it's honestly it's
right,
very debilitating for a teacher to be stuck to something they don't like teaching. Like imagine like if you're walking into work every day and you hate what you're doing, you want to at least be paid well. But if you're walking into work every day, deal with a bunch of you know adolescent children, and you're not even being
right.
paid well for work you don't like, I think that's why we're seeing a massive teacher shortage. And I think it's a big problem that teachers are being forced to teach to a test and not being not teaching to learn, and not be teaching to see how the world works, right? If we look at science, if we look at all this stuff, the scientific method, it's all to understand how the world around you works, right? It might be a straight line process, but that straight line process is made to be easier for our human brains, our rational minds, to understand a possibly irrational world around us, right? And that's where we see philosophers like I mentioned earlier, like
Mm,
Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, when they would be discussing this stuff in in these agoras or in these
ancient
buildings,
Athens.
ancient Athens, ancient Greece as a whole, right, or Rome even, right? Whether
Ancient
that be Seneca
Athens.
the Younger or what Cincinnatus
Anyone
or
in ancient Greece, really.
whoever it may be, who's a philosopher, just just a great person, or no, not a great person, but a thoughtful mind, is they're speaking with people, they're building connections, they're whether that be on personal anecdotal evidence, whether
Uh,
that be on scientific evidence, right? Now I do there's definitely scientific evidence before the scientific method was really adopted by people like Sir Francis Bacon and Sir Isaac Newton, but if we're looking at it from a standpoint of that, you know.
yeah. Shushan, wait. You forgot to tell them something.
Talking about what?
You know, the thing.
Oh, subscribe, follow, and hit that like button. So, like I was saying about Sir Isaac Newton, Sir Francis Bacon, like the were made to teach people using evidence, whether that be scientific, anecdotal, whether that be just or just logic, right? If A then B then A, then syllogisms, right? If A then B, if B then C, therefore A
A
then
and C.
C,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So I think that's where we see stuff like that, where we see the beginnings of logic, evidence, and this beginning of the scientific method, and we really see a lot of classicalism penetrating a lot of the humanistic, the humanism, the Renaissance, and the scienceology, not scienceology, the sciences of an older Europe, right? So
Right, right.
I think we'll see there, but especially with Socrates, these people are creating when they're speaking, they're creating multiple bridges, right? And they're really creating really strong foundational stuff in terms of education. If I talk to you about why cats are afraid of dogs, right? And then I give you anecdotal evidence, right?
Sure.
And I tell you about how this one time, this cat, I saw this cat running from a dog, and then I tell you again, okay, um, would you be scared if you saw a big man running at you? And you might say, for obvious reasons,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I would be
I
pretty
would be
scared.
scared.
Okay, so why wouldn't a cat be? Right? And that's logic they would use.
Yeah.
And also we will see scientific evidence. Again, it's not as hard and fast and as double blinds and all that as we have today or how we used to have. But at the end of the day, that's how it was back uh, in ancient Greece, and they'd build a lot of these strong connections that would be in the long-term storage, and they'd also talk about important stuff, right? Whether that be useful or not is up to argument, but they would talk about the philosophies of governance, right?
Mm.
We see this again with people like Machiavelli
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
all this stuff. But yeah, again and again in history, and for a long time, we'll see a lot of stuff. Yeah,
So we've talked about like history and behind that, but we've also, this has kind of been about grade school a little bit, the teachers and stuff. We're talking about like K through 12. We kind of are prepping for this big question. Are are you ready for the real world? Because of the school system. Is First of all, we're not even going to talk about college. Let's talk about K through 12. Has it prepped you for college in the real world?
college and the real world. You see, that's a good question. I don't think so.
I agree because what have you learned in school that will translate into the real, how much of it? And oftentimes, it's a very common question teachers get asked in math. When is this going to be
Yeah,
useful?
what am I using with Pythagorean
How
theorem?
often are you using it
Yeah.
a day? And then I've gone through school, Trujan, we haven't learned about taxes. We haven't learned about mortgages. We haven't even learned about simple stuff, how to change a tire off a car.
Or how to change your oil. A lot of people don't know how.
A lot of people don't know
Or
how.
when to change tires. But what do you do if
And then
you have
people are
flat?
surprised that they don't know. Like adults are surprised that our generation doesn't know. But what have we learned?
No, but to that avail though, I think maybe school might not be preparing us for the world, but I definitely do think it's preparing us for college and for
I
secondary
agree.
school. But is it really school's goal to teach us for this world, right? For the real world? And I think that boils down to,
Is it a parent's job
and
instead?
I asked them, like, it boils down to what is the purpose of school? And that's something we can definitely tackle a bit later on. But I think a combination of school, working a job, going out with friends, and other like I don't want to say extracurricular activities, but stuff you do outside of school, I think can have just as or even more importance than a lot of school. And I've seen it a lot that like people will go to school and high school, and then whether they're in high school, they might get a trucking license. They might um go and get they might go to trade school while still in high school even, and they'll get some stuff in, or they'll go. The really high achieving ones will go to dual enrollment, and they'll go to community college. It's time. Everyone's different, right?
Right.
Everyone's
Right.
pace is different.
It's of course, is school one size fits all?
That's another thing. It's like
It doesn't work for
if
everyone.
someone's neurodivergent, they shouldn't be in special ed
Correct.
classes.
Right.
Because special ed classes might not be optimal, and not even optimal, they might just not work. But should neurodivergent kid be placed in special programs, special schools, or should this be placed just where we are,
Right.
right? And I mean, I brought up neurodivergency as an example, but like let's just say like you're a visual learner, I'm a audio learner. It's like that's like that too. It's like
It's like
it's not built for
it's
everyone.
not built for everyone,
If
and
if,
it's
if I'm
hard.
a guy who learns by doing experimental education, as you will, school is definitely not helping out. I think that's one of the biggest problems in school. I think the biggest problem with school is the lack of experimental education.
I think that is a good point because how often are we actually doing instead of just sitting and listening and not actually getting hands-on experience?
100%. Like okay, another thing is like I've seen like a lot of guys straight out of high school. They go straight to construction. They'll make bank, then they might apply for licenses for to become a contractors and this and that, and eventually, down the line, they'll be making just as much money as the engineer, right? They might have as much net worth as a doctor, but it's also up to the person. Construction is not easy, bro. Like it's
It's not
hard
easy.
work. Imagine being out there for at least 8 hours a day, just working. And like if we're here in the Southwest, it's like 100 degrees in the summer. It's awful. And in places like Arizona and certain parts of New Mexico and some parts of California even, it's 120 degrees, bro. And they have to wear boots, jeans, shirt, high vis, helmet. It's awful, bro, and it's not light loads. It's not easy. It's
It's not
the
easy.
yeah, and then
But why hasn't is school just prepping us to get a 9 to 5 when we get out? School, college, 9 to 5, provide for your family, have 2 or 3 kids. Is that what they want us to do? Then they haven't taught us other skills: collaboration, public speaking, adaptability. Even most kids can't do Excel, basic stuff that most jobs look for.
Yeah, I mean that's again. I think we should definitely solutions as experimental education. And also it's like I definitely do think school wants and is oriented for someone who wants to get a 9 to 5 job. Whether that I think when people say 9 to 5 job,
I think people, it's 9 to 5 jobs are too much frowned upon. You do need your nine to five
I think
jobs.
nowadays with internet gurus and
Correct. People selling you
Andrew
a
Tate,
course you
Imran
don't need.
Ghazi, all these people that are trying to sell you courses, they're trying to tell you, oh, this is bad. I think it's up to you. If you enjoy working a 9 to 5, and then once you're off the clock, going out with friends,
Right.
going out to nature, doing something cool, right? Like, oh, I don't know if you see like a Ford commercial, but like, ever since Netflix added commercials, I'm getting commercials any day of the week, bro. It's so annoying. But anyway, if I'm watching Netflix, I always see this commercial. It's like a Ford Bronco commercial. So it's
Sure.
like this lady will working her desk job, right? And the second it hits 5 o'clock, she takes out her dirty boots and she's out there off roading on her Ford Bronco, and she goes mountain
Living
biking, all this
life.
stuff. And it's like, oh, I'll be honest, I would enjoy that. Now, would I enjoy 9 to 5? Maybe not so much, but would I enjoy being out there, having the opportunity after 5 o'clock, just being maybe not even 5 o'clock, maybe like you go in a bit early and you get out a bit early, but going out and just having fun with friends and nature and working on myself and just spending time with family because at the end of the day we're all on this earth for a limited amount of time. We should probably spend it with people we love, right?
And I think a lot of the time, our age boys, men now at our age, because of the people they've been influenced by on social media, telling them if you're doing a 9 to 5, it's not good enough. You need to go. It's not good enough. It's not a good enough way to provide. So how should
Yeah.
someone like a 9 to 5 then? Because everything they're hearing,
I do think those when people think 9 to 5, I did think it's all for your
they always think
staring
it's
at.
sitting at your desk in your
Yeah,
cubicle.
I mean, first off, that's just not what a 9 to 5 is. A 9 to 5 can be a construction job. 9 to 5 can be
It can be outside. It doesn't have
yeah.
to be in an
It,
office.
and another thing is like I don't know about you, but if I was working on certain stuff, like of course, if I'm doing math problems for 8 hours a day, I'd be bored out of my mind.
Right,
But
right.
again, it's like that's what school makes you
School is
think,
prepping you for
right?
that.
But we're not doing math problems. I think very few, if any, professions are doing math problems for 8 hours a day. I think you'll have stuff like meetings, calls, actual work, whether that be Excel sheets, whether that be marketing campaigns. I think within the 9 to 5 job should be any job should be you're building towards something. I think there's been a rise of useless jobs recently, whether it be like you know I hate picking on DEI, but like diversity, inclusion, and what's it called? What's the
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
diversity, equity? What does equity even mean, right? In that terminology, and like I think we're definitely seeing. I do believe that we are seeing a little bit of a shift away from DEI as we're seeing less importance in ESG. For those of you who don't know, ESG is a financial performance indicator.
Right.
I wouldn't say that actually.
It's
It's an indicator that a lot of people used to use a few years ago, just recently even. That was gained a lot of popularity because it was based on how the company is doing environmentally, sustainability, and what do people look at it from a social standpoint? Companies like Apple, Nvidia, and Xbox might be doing pretty good at that,
right.
whereas other companies like Schlumberger or ExxonMobil might not be doing so good because they are an oil firm,
Yeah.
right? Um,
But I'll
and
disagree with what you said about D&I because how can a company in today's world not be expected to have D&I? Because many people say you need to have equal number of women, men. You need to have certain races have a certain number. You need to have LGBTQ. So a company, maybe they don't even want it, but in today's world, it's kind of required, and it's therefore, I'd say, a growing field.
Yeah, I mean, like, maybe jobs are increasing in the market, but I mean, we saw it just recently after the CrowdStrike stuff a
Right.
few months ago now, I think. But we saw Microsoft was they dropped their whole DEI team. Um, because I mean, like, what's the point of DEI? If you're in a war room, if you're all hands on deck, you got to be working on the problem at hand. Hey, like this CrowdStrike stuff. Some people's data just stopped, might have gotten taken. Banks have stopped working. Payment systems have collapsed. Like hospitals might not be working,
Mm.
and people's lives are in the balance here. And we don't need a DEI. What can DEI do in that scenario? If anything, they might get in the way when we need computer scientists, we need engineers on the ground. I guess not on the ground, in the offices, right, working on solutions to problems that could, determine livelihoods, determine economic abilities, and all this stuff. I really do think that, with especially with the beginning of Microsoft's, closure on their DEI team, I think that's a big shift in what DEI is, and especially with the lack of importance that ESG has seen just recently, because it was, I guess, a trendy indicator,
Yeah, it was.
right?
Um,
Yeah,
so you've kind of talked about the workforce. We've both spoken, and then about grade school. Here's the question step we're missing right now. 17-year-old, 18-year-old about to go into college, or actually we'll go 16-year-old. They're about to decide kind of what they want to do in their future. Are you telling them to go get a college degree?
I think it depends on what they want to do. I think if they want to be successful, they don't need to.
You don't think success requires a college degree?
Success does not require a college degree.
Why?
I think because as long as you work hard, hard work is all you need. I
Do
think
you think
I
people
don't think
make it sound too easy to be successful without a college degree?
I think that gurus like, educating them on God, you definitely do. I think that online, I think that's unfortunate. But I think people like David Goggins who talk about like, oh, hard work is all you need. I think that is really true. A I've seen poor people who work hard, but
Correct, definitely.
I've never seen a rich person who doesn't work hard. Of course, bar people who inherit massive,
Inherit money, but for the most part,
yeah,
also those people often don't stay rich or keep the wealth going in their
yeah.
family. But so can you really beat the system?
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by can you
I
this?
mean, can I, all these people I'm seeing online, I want to be like them. And obviously they're saying not to go to college. Can I be like them if I go to college?
If yeah, I think if you go to college, I think you can be like them. But I think the question is, can I be like these people? Can I be how they say I am? I think a lot of these people are there for their own self gain, whether that be for selling courses or whatnot. But I also think that they're also peddling, saturated. I hate saying saturated markets, but they're peddling saturated markets, whether it be, social media marketing agencies or whether that be, drop shipping. I think these models work, but they're old, they're clunky, and they're frankly just not up to par in what I guess the current meta is and what the current people what they need. Um, but I yeah, I mean.
I mean, I also think people often put too much pressure on what they're learning in school because is your major a total waste of time? I mean, because I've heard,
I mean, as long as you're on underwater basket, I don't think it's a complete waste
I
of time.
think there is certain majors that are there useless degrees. Can you go to college just to get a basket weaving
Yeah,
degree? Is
yeah,
that wrong?
I think okay. I think you should do whatever you want to do.
Right,
But
of course.
that being said, that's a complete waste of time. Now, I don't know if you know if you're familiar with
He's, no offense to anyone doing.
all the offense. Like what are you doing in an underwater
No, but the
basket
question
weaving
is there,
game?
like, you could do that without a college degree, so why are you going,
Yeah.
like, we haven't
Now,
even mentioned the expense, the growing money.
yeah. So I mean, like there are. I think a lot of jobs you can do without a college degree. I think that 100%. I think you can do. I think you can do 100% of jobs without a college degree. Now there are stuff like doctors, engineers, and people like that who ideally, the degree isn't what is what makes them that. It's the training. The fact that they've had 4 to 12 years of training is what makes them, not necessarily a degree, right? Now that degree is a form of regulation, and it's an easy way of identifying. Hey, should this guy be practicing medicine? Should this guy be operating on me? Right?
Yeah.
So I
I
think
mean, I would prefer that my doctor went to college, went to the regular med
yeah,
school,
and
sadly to say.
yeah. So it's like yeah, I do think that like obviously degrees have their purpose,
Right.
right? But I think I think they're called stars, but it's people without. It's called the paper ceiling. Should the paper ceiling still exist in jobs that like marketing? Should they still exist in computer science jobs and stuff like that that aren't that might not have lives in the balance that are incredibly important that are high paying should they really have a paper ceiling or should they have a degree? I mean, I don't know.
What about I'm 16, I don't know what I want to study. Just say I have no interest. STEM versus humanities. Which degree pays off?
Which degree? I think okay. I think it comes back to at the end of the day, hard work. I think let's say I go for a history major. If I go and I'm working hard, I'm frugal, I'm investing. I think by the time I'm 30, I might be making enough money that for me at least, right? But if I'm going to a private school for a history degree and I go pursue a graduate and a postgraduate degree, I think that I'm shooting myself in the foot. If I have close to, if I have anywhere more than $100,000, if I have honestly, if I have more than $40,000 in student debt, I think it's not good at all if I'm having a degree that pays less than 100 grand. Now, that's what I think at least. I think that it's incredibly detrimental to put yourself in a disadvantage. Uh,
Incredible debt?
yeah, extreme debt.
I mean, why is someone paying 100 grand a year to go study something that they're not even sure about?
And that pays them 20 grand a year. Like,
That pays them less than what you're paying to go learn about it?
I think that's absurd to me. I think that
But in the how you say that's absurd. Most jobs aren't going to pay you 100K coming out of university.
that's true. Most of them won't. A large
Most won't.
majority won't. So I think that a lot of
How do you
people.
justify college? There's my question.
Okay, let me tell you this, right? I think the 4 year is dumb. I think you should
Just a
be.
4 year bachelor's.
I think that's dumb. I think, look, either you should be taking AP courses or dual enrollment in high school, which I understand,
Some schools don't offer, but
maybe APs might be too expensive for you. I do know that some schools and the college board themselves have programs that will allow
ways
you to.
to most programs, most national things do
But
have ways
but
for.
let's say you can't take anything in college, any high school, right? You can't do anything. Then what would I do? I mean, I would go to college count like community college before I do 4 year like my start my degree. I think the the degree like if I'm doing at least in America how it works is with general education. That's your first 1 to 2 years, right? Depending on majors, credits that you get before, and stuff like that. But that's what I'm thinking, right? So I think it's incredibly dumb to get a degree that doesn't pay.
What about the fact that the world's always changing, and in 4 years from now, my degree might not be paying, and some other
Exactly.
one else's is?
It,
How can I expect it's too? And you're also 17. You don't know
you know
everything
what you
about the
want to
real
do,
world.
right? And I think okay, first off, I think that plays again. Like if I want to community college the first 2 years, the first my general education, then I can choose. Hey, now in the next 2 years, what degree do I pick? Right? The degree I would pick is well, I only have a 2. Now I can figure out. Okay, in 2 years from now, what would be the choice to pick? Whether if let's say I'm going to high school 4 years from now, what do I pick? I wouldn't know. I've only gone to high school. I don't have much experience, so I can't even make an accurate claim. And I definitely would not be making an accurate, prediction 4 years from now. I have a way better chance after going through community college, after 2 years, to figure out something. I think we're starting to see this now with CS degrees, computer
Mm.
science degrees. A lot of people are not getting fantastic. I think a lot of people are working as baristas, bartenders, when they have CS degrees, whether that be because it's oversaturated market, whether they went to a school that doesn't offer the best CS program, or whatnot. Maybe the market is down, which it definitely is right now. But yeah, I think that's an inherent volatility. I think again, I hate saying this, but it's all about hard work, right? If you work hard, I think that I mean like really, I don't just mean like oh I worked 8 hours today. I mean like you're pulling 16, 17 hour work days for multiple days, multiple weeks, multiple months, possibly multiple years in a row. I think it might not be it's definitely not sustainable. But I think that could be what really pushes people ahead if they don't need school, if they don't go to college. Um, Again, I've never seen a rich person who doesn't work hard.
I know we have. not slated, but been against a lot what the gurus say. But Ancient Tate has said that one secret they don't tell you is not hard work means you didn't fail. Hard if you work actually hard, you can't fail. There's no way you will fail.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true. But I do also think that people like Andrew Tate, not Andrew Tate specifically, but people like Andrew Tate, all these gurus online, they do serve a purpose, and that's as an alternative to a college degree.
Some people really might hate school. It might not be for them.
Yeah, I think the person is an alternative to college degree, which whether they might be horrible courses, they might be a bit too expensive, but I think that as a symbol to what an alternative to a college degree can be while teaching high level skills, I think that's incredibly important. I think it serves an incredible purpose. I think that it can help a lot of people who can't do it, especially the fact that it's online. I I was speaking with professors. I was speaking with former hiring managers. They hate. They do not hire people with online degrees. But I would say that an online degree is better than nothing. But now let's say I'm I'm working, but I'm still paying, let's just say 20 grand, 40 grand for these degrees. I think it's beyond done. I might as well pay 2 grand for if I'm paying 40 grand for a degree that higher majors don't like, I think that's dumb. But if I'm paying 2 grand for a course, I think that's fine. I'm going to ask you something, Rahul. What do you think? So we've been talking about what's wrong with school, what's the purpose of school. I think I'm going to ask you something. What does an alternative? What's the solution to school look like?
So I think there's a few things. I think it honestly covers everything we've talked about. So standardized testing. There's an over reliance on it, and we're seeing it now. Colleges aren't requiring,
That's true.
but also college it's fake test optional. Some would say so. We maybe need to go score free, balance assessment, focus on growth, not just the numbers. Focus on how has a student improved over ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th grade for colleges, and also we need to focus on the fact that me and you are different. So throwing us in the same seven classes, of course one of us two is going to do
Yeah,
better, but that doesn't mean you're the better student than me. Actually, I'll say this. It does mean you're the better student than me. It doesn't mean you're more
a smarter
equipped, a
person
smarter person than
or a
me.
better person. Yeah, yeah.
And I think that going off that, personalized learning, you can't have 30 people where we've talked about might be more on doing, I might be more on audio, and teach us the same way. We should find out how a student learns and exploit that. Really make them want to learn because, Shushan, I don't think students love to go to school, and I think there was a time when they did.
I completely agree with that. I think that I love learning for learning.
Right,
But
exactly.
I also acknowledge that I'm an outlier, right? And frankly, I hate sitting in a boring history class, dude.
Sometimes you're just bored out of your mind. And honestly, it's like me, I don't enjoy learning math sometimes because I'm thinking to myself, when am I ever going to learn to need to use this derivative in my field?
I don't think it's even that. Like I'm in Spanish class, bro. I hate my Spanish class. My Spanish class is the worst. All we do is watch videos,
We say
do
this, we're in the same
do
Spanish class, so we can laugh about it.
do the homework, the same homework that I've already done
Oh my
over and
God.
over again, and I don't even understand what I'm doing.
You're just completing the motions. And honestly, I couldn't tell you what I learned about this
I
night.
don't understand Spanish. I haven't spoken any Spanish in the past 3 years. I took the AP exam already. Then I came into this class. This class, I've lost the ability to speak Spanish.
It's hard because this teacher isn't, so no offense to the teacher, but her way of learning doesn't suit us. It's just watching videos and taking notes on the videos and expecting to go home and answer questions about it. But it's not engaging to the two of us.
It's not engaging. I'm not learning anything that I couldn't learn about in frankly a lecture. No, I definitely do think that a lecture serves a purpose. I think that if I'm learning about the history of a certain country, whether that be America, UK, Kenya, India, I think lectures are incredibly viable there. I think that you could argue that virtual reality and augmented realities are better, but on the grand scheme of things, I think that it's a very resource intensive. I don't think 99.999% of schools in the world don't have the resources to do that. Maybe some private schools in
Well, that's one of the
Switzerland.
things I'm saying we need to change. Why don't we? Obviously, I'm going to be honest. Government does fund public schools, but why hasn't it worked?
That's a good question, dude. It's like why it hasn't.
Many would say that's the third pillar. That's what most governments, Democrat, Republican, liberals,
It's
haven't been able to
because
figure out.
the government isn't working like a business. I think that's why. I think the government isn't investing in the education because investment is a long term thing. We've seen this again and again that when countries invest in their education, income goes up. They see GDP per capita goes up. They see general GDP go up, and they also see, you know, a fall in birth rates, which is definitely not what countries like Western Europe, what America, and what people like Japan needs. But places like Bangladesh, they've done this before. They had exorbitant overpopulation. The capital of Bangladesh. Do you know what the
DACA.
capital of Bangladesh? Dhaka. Dhaka is an incredibly densely populated uh, country, and you know, overpopulation is a big problem, especially in Dhaka. So when they invested a lot into the education, they saw a drastic nosedive in birth rates. Not because people were becoming infertile or anything like that, because women and especially and also men, but mostly women were now having the ability to go into careers. They were becoming more career oriented rather than becoming more domestically and home oriented. And they're also seeing, you know, income rises. So, kids take a little bit of
So
investment.
good education can fix national problems,
Yeah,
international problems, because overpopulation is a worldwide
it's a
problem.
worldwide problem, especially in places like China and stuff.
And so you'd say that when a country invests correctly into its uh, into its schools,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
creating good
I don't
citizens.
know. Have you seen the stuff in Texas? Like,
Yeah,
the stuff in it's absurd. I think the DeSoto Eagles are like just won some championship or whatever, but it's absurd. They have NFL level stadiums
their
out there.
schools are huge. Their schools have fast food restaurants
It's
inside
a
of it.
whole university, college, high school, elementary school, and preschool, all in one.
Right.
They're huge facilities, but at least from an outsider perspective, it looks like they're overly dominant in sports, not so much in
Why hasn't a school with that much money? Why have they focused on sports? Because honestly, Shushan, how many of them are going to make it into the professional sports
yeah.
world?
I think the DeSoto Eagles are a bit of a
Outlier.
outlier because they have I think 3 to 4 5-star recruits, which again absurd outlier. But I do think that schools should be investing correctly into education.
Mm.
Maybe into better teachers, maybe into better training for teachers, maybe into class designs that function better. Right? For example, in ancient Greece, okay, they had systems, they had uh, stadiums that would work better for speakers to speak. The voice would carry better, right? If I'm sitting in the back of the classroom, I need to be able to hear my teacher, my professor. Now, I think that's a problem nowadays. I think, whether that be technology, whether that be just knowledge, whether that be smaller areas, that's not that big of a problem anymore. I don't think the sound itself is the problem. But um, I guess the sound of knowledge, I guess if you want to call it that, right? I guess the ability to be truly cognizant of what you're learning is completely different. I think if I'm sitting in the front row, I best be paying attention.
Right.
If I'm sitting in the back row, I'm a backbencher, bro. I'm sitting in the back. I'm messing around. I'm not doing anything.
So modernize the classroom experience. I mean, I sit in the back of some of my classes, normally the class where I don't like the teacher and I don't care about what's going on in the class because
I might sit in the corner near
I
a
might sit in the
wall.
corner of the wall, maybe lean my head, not even just go on my phone, but sometimes I will just zone out and it's easier in those areas. So I think you need to modernize the classroom experience so that students are engaged, force them to want to learn, force them to be involved, because then eventually I think you'll see the rewards in good citizens.
And I think that's why videos and lectures
I
a
don't know
very
why teachers think you can slap up a 50-minute lecture and call it a crash course and expect students to not zone out.
Yeah, I think that once you hit a certain point in videos, it's pointless.
It's pointless.
Especially in classes like Spanish. Like I should be speaking, I should be listening with people. Like if I'm speaking in Spanish with you, I believe that my bang for buck, if I'm speaking with 50 minutes for someone in Spanish, I think I might get 100 points in my Spanish. If we want to see like a video game, I might level up twice in Spanish. But if I'm watching a video in Spanish, I might lose levels.
Because how
Like
much of it are you taking in? Why would you? It's a video.
I'm not even paying
You're
attention.
speaking to me. You have to understand what I'm going to say to speak back.
Yeah, if I'm watching a video, I'm gonna lose confidence that I know what I'm talking about because a lot of videos will use colloquial terms. They might use terms that aren't the most helpful, right? They might use complex terms that a guy who's learning Spanish like me and you won't know.
100% agree. I mean, in so many of my classes, especially Spanish, they're expecting me to take notes on what's put on a projector in front of me on a generic slideshow. And then
I don't understand the language. What am I supposed to do?
what am I going to do? Like, I'm just writing down, it could be gibberish. It could be a different language. It could be French, Mandarin. I don't know. And I'm not learning anything. It's not increasing my
You don't
knowledge.
know.
So I think it's a real issue in schools that this is how teachers are teaching. So I think you need to invent new ways for teachers to learn, make them more interactive. And I think it's a whole top to bottom approach.
I hate Spanish class too. But no. On a more serious note, yeah, I think that the money is there.
I
And
agree.
but I think it's not
No
being
one
used
is going to
properly.
be opposed to investing in schools.
I definitely do think that. I wouldn't say that though. I think there's always keep people opposed to
Oh
something.
no, of course, but and
But
also the amounts will differ. But
yeah,
you can't say school is a bad place to invest in. Maybe how you're
I
investing.
think it's a better place to invest in than a lot of things that Americans investing in. I mean, like, it's truly absurd the stuff that America is putting money into that frankly doesn't give the world, the people, or America's government
It's
a
not
damn.
helping us.
I mean, that's for another episode though, but
Yeah,
yeah, I think that a lot of money that should be going to education is going to frankly useless stuff overseas that we do not need.
I agree. I agree.
So yeah.
And that's a wrap on our very first episode of the Gen Z Blueprint. We're just getting started, and we're thrilled to have you along for the ride. If you found today's conversation helpful, hit that subscribe button, share it. Even interesting, we'll cover a wide variety of topics. This is just our first one. We want to build a community with you guys. We've got some incredible topics lined up, and yeah, we want to keep everything engaged for you Gen Z audience. So let's keep shaping our blueprint for success. Catch you next time.
See you guys.